Hello, I'm Daniel Hammond, and I'm going to present you with my own reaction to the April 2008 debate presented by Intelligence Squared. I spent several hours both watching the recorded debate and reading the transcripts, and the one consistent message that seemed to come across to me from this program is that Islam is somehow out of control and unreasonable, and ultimately that there's something we need to be afraid of. And I think that's the problem with this overall debate statement. It's making a controversial point, but it's not a very useful one. The question it poses is the problem that we in the West have with the issue, which is, are we supposed to be afraid? The panelists here are attempting to fine-tune this argument, and it's something that they've already both conceded. Reza Aslan and his team on the opponent side concede that there's a significant radical element to the Islamic faith, while the, quote, winning side, Paul Marshall and his team, the proponents, concede that radical Islam does not represent the faith as a whole. So what does this mean? Without understanding why radicalization is occurring, we can't address our own concerns about the issue. A better debate statement, in my opinion, might be, why is the radical faction of the Islamic faith growing in influence around the world? In order to answer that, we need to keep a couple of things in mind. First, recognize that within the context of religion in the modern age, Islam is not hugely different from other world religions, and in this case, most notably, Christianity. It's disingenuous to complain about Saudi charities spending money to strengthen Islam in places like Afghanistan and Bangladesh, when for centuries Christian groups and church organizations had sent missionaries to every part of the world for the sole purpose of converting non-Christians to that faith. So when we're looking at this issue, we have to consider that Western civilization has its own history of radicalism, and that certainly affects how other countries in the Middle East regard us. I think we need to understand what part our influence makes in terms of this subject. Secondly, we need to understand that these events do not occur on their own naturally. They are reactions to political and economic conditions that have developed over many years and from conditions we can identify. For many people, particularly the young and unemployed who've been disillusioned by decades of corrupt governance, lack of financial opportunity, and disenfranchised politically, the Islamic faith provides a connection to a broader community. It's a clear structure in an anarchic environment and an opportunity to establish one's own power and control within this religious context. But in a larger sense, governments in countries such as Saudi Arabia and the UAE react to what they see as a threat to their own regional hegemony from the effects of globalization. These are countries with a huge disparity between wealthy business elite and their core population. And again, Islam provides structure and helps establish a firm control over the underprivileged. So they have a vested interest in maintaining a religious rather than secular power structure as well. Free speech is easy to control when it can be defined as blasphemous. So what do we do? First, we have to remember that even in our own country, it is usually the loudest voices that get heard, not necessarily the most effective ones. If we see radicalized Islam as a problem that must be solved, we need to connect with and appeal to more moderate religious leaders and scholars in the Middle East and seek ways to find common ground. We need to focus on issues that we all share and can promote to the broader Islamic world. We need to be seen as partners and not military policemen. Secondly, involvement must be approached through economic and humanitarian initiatives. Here, in this case, Joseph Nye's concept of soft power is much more potent than the use of force, which has clearly undermined our own position for several decades. In my opinion, it's time for change. We need to focus on building economic empowerment of the underprivileged throughout the Southern Hemisphere, a very big job. but particularly in countries where we, the US and the West, have either invaded or liberated, depending on your point of view. And next, we need to truly partner with international agencies acting as leaders to establish safe zones and promote unconditional security in conflict-ridden regions. Ultimately, we in the West have to accept responsibility for these influences we have on the emerging world. If we see these issues as our own ethical imperative, then it is also our responsibility to make sure that we don't make it worse. Thank you.